Good morning, everyone. We're in Esther here, Ruth and Esther sketchbook, illustrated by Jill Mockingbird, and it has Bible verses, every Bible verse of Ruth, and a little drawing. So hopefully it will help you if you're a visual learner. Somebody just wrote a thank you note to me and said, I love the coloring books, so I guess you could color it if you wanted to. That's fine. I haven't thought of them as a coloring book, but actually it's a good idea. So we're on finishing Esther 2. This is not every verse. This is just me drawing out. These look like lollipop men. But this is Mordecai. His stepdaughter is Queen Esther. And they were by the gate. And two men, Terah and Bigthana, were plotting to kill the king. So they were found out. Mordecai was the whistleblower and told on them. And they were hung, executed. And it was written down in a book of Chronicles. Esther 3. After these things, King Ahasuerus, I don't know how to say that, promoted Haman. He's a bad guy. But Mordecai would not bow down or pay homage. When Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow or pay him homage, is it homage? Homage. Give him respect. Haman was filled with wrath, but he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Instead, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews, the people of Mordecai. So Haman has been promoted, and everyone has to bow down to him, except Mordecai does not bow down. He is Jewish, and he refuses to pay homage to worship he refuses to worship anything else besides God. So Haman is mad and says, get the Jews. Esther 3:8. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from all your people's, and they do not keep the king's laws. Therefore it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. If it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who do the work, to bring it into the king's treasuries. So Haman tells the king, he's kind of like a tattletale, hey, there are people who don't follow your rules. Jews without the king's law, almost like Amish don't have to follow our laws. There are Jews without the king's law, and they're scattered in the kingdom. Let them be destroyed, destroy the Jews, and I will give 10,000 talents of silver for those who do the work. So Haman is mad at the Jews and wants to destroy them. So the king took his signet ring and gave it to Haman. And the king said to Haman, the money and the people are given to you to do with them as seems good to you. So here's your special ring and some money. The money and the people are given to you to do with as seems good to you. Do whatever you want. Here's money and a ring. Esther 4:4. So Esther's maids and eunuchs came and told... Okay. So I have to tell you that page 64 and 65 are messed up. So let's go to 65. Esther 3:13. The letters were sent by courier into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, and to plunder their possessions. So this should have an R. To plunder their possessions. So kill and plunder in one day. These letters were sent out by courier into all the lands. So the king and Haman sat down to drink. Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Shushan was perplexed. Haman and the king sat down to drink, and the city of Shushan was perplexed and confused. Why? These are little buildings or skyscrapers. Why did this happen? Esther 4. When Mordecai learned all that had happened, he tore his clothes. Sorry, this was put into the scanner wrong. He tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went out into the midst of the city. He went as far as the front of the king's gate, for no one might enter the king's gate with sackcloth. That's mourning clothes. He's so sad. He's put on some special clothes, but he can't wear that into the city, into the king's gate. He cried out with a loud and bitter cry. So Mordecai tore his clothes. In different cultures in the Eastern, they tear their clothes in mourning. I don't know what I wrote there, sorry. Mordecai rips his clothes. I wish I could rip my clothes right now because he's so upset. He put on sackcloth and ashes, an old burlap sack kind of thing, and put on black ashes like on his head. That means mourning. And he made a loud and bitter cry, and he could not go into the king's gate. Just not culturally allowed. So I'm going to go back to Esther 4:4. Sorry about that. So Esther's maids and eunuchs, male servants, came and told her what's going on, and the queen was deeply distressed and so sad. Then she sent garments to clothe Mordecai and take his sackcloth away from him, but he would not accept them. Then Esther called Hathach, I don't know how to say it, and Mordecai told him all that had happened. So Esther's eunuch, he has no head, and maids came to Esther and said, Mordecai is wailing in the city. She said, bring him some clothes. So they brought him some clothes. Here are some clothes for you from Esther. No, says Mordecai. So Hathach, I think that's her servant, I'm not sure, goes. Esther sends Hathach to Mordecai and find out what's going on. And Mordecai says, Haman wants to kill the Jews. This is a terrible thing. He wants to annihilate the Jews. And the Jewish are Esther's people. But she hasn't told them, the king, about that she's Jewish. He also gave him a copy of the written decree that he might show it to Esther and explain it to her, and that he might command her to go into the king to make supplication to him and plead before him to her people. So Mordecai says to Hathach, here's the decree. Maybe Esther can go talk to the king. Then Esther spoke to Hathach and gave him a command for Mordecai. Any man or woman who goes into the inner court to the king who has not been called, he has but one law, to be put to death. So if she goes to talk to the king without being asked, without permission, she can be put to death. So it's quite a lot of suspense. What's going to happen? And Mordecai told them to answer Esther. Told them or told him? If you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? So Mordecai says, maybe you've come for such a time as this. If you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? So that's very important. If you come, maybe God has brought you for such a time as this. Maybe God has brought you into your life for such a time as what's going on right now. Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, go gather all the Jews and fast for me, and so I will go to the king, which is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Esther replied to Mordecai, I think through Hashach, go to all the Jews, tell them to fast and look to God at this time. And if I perish, I perish. So we need to be bold and do whatever God tells us to do as well. So God be with your day. Love from Jill. I'll hopefully talk to you tomorrow.